You know what? I'm going to start recording on the computer.
Hannah, I think we have a guest.
Yeah. Did you? Oh, so Sergeant at Arms, you have already started the meeting. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't hear anything until like right now. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Thanks for filling me in. Good morning, everyone, and most Toastmasters and most welcome guests. Deepak, did you want to unmute yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi. Hi, everybody. This is Deepak, and this is the first time. I've been planning to join this meeting like 2-3 weeks ago, but then I couldn't make it. So this is first time. Thanks a lot for this platform. Really awesome. I'm basically from India, Pune. Right now, I'm in Gulf region. I'm contributing to the success of Juniper Network here, and we are working for a local company. So I'm not really sure if I can join this group or I cannot. And this is one question I would love to discuss, ask you. And if no, then what are the other ways or where I can join? So suddenly the aim to join this is, you can clearly see that I need to improve my public speaking and things like that. So that's the only aim. Yeah.
No, welcome. I'm sorry I didn't catch what part of India you're in right now, or what part you're.
I am from Pune.
Working out of. Nice. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've had Toastmasters internationally. Even within our meeting, we've had people join from Russia, Japan, different countries, as well, India as well included. So we have had even members, I think, that were based out of there as well. So definitely welcome, Deepak. And I think you did great this morning. So you're definitely on your pathways to improvement. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Most welcome. All right. And then before we jump into the meeting here, we're going to introduce the Toastmaster of today, who is Gautam. So Gautam will either choose somebody to do an invocation or do an invocation for the meeting theme of today. And so please welcome one of our newest members, but also somebody that we've seen that really just flourish and blossom in this club. Gautam, welcome this morning.
Hey, good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and thank you, Hannah. All right, today's theme is equilibrium. Equilibrium, we can apply that in different areas. It's a vast theme. If we narrow down to any of our life, or like theme, our work, or our personal relations, we have to maintain an equilibrium state of mind between emotions and the speech. Equilibrium between good and bad. Equilibrium between the relations. If you observe a very good speaker and an influencer, they will maintain a very good equilibrium state of the word that they deliver and the emotions they express. To a good leader and an influencer, the followers will follow their footpaths. If you want to be a leader, the purpose of being an equilibrium is to lead, to improve ourselves to the next step and keep forwarding us. Thank you. So we have to fill few roles. We have only one speaker today, and we don't have an evaluator for speaker one.
We have 2 speakers.
Okay, we have Georgie as a backup speaker. Would anyone like to evaluate speaker one, which is Wyming, and speaker two is Georgie?
I can evaluate either one, Gautam. Yeah. Or go ahead, Tao. Yeah.
Okay, I'll fill Tao to evaluate Wyming, and Hannah to evaluate Georgie. Tao and Hannah. All right. We need an R counter.
Who's
Harun?
GE?
Oh, I'm GE.
Okay, cool. Just
I'm GE.
Yep. General evaluator is
I can be
Harun.
out counter. I can be out counter.
We have ballot counter. I assume it's Hannah.
So Harun, can you explain the role about ballot counter? Sorry, of a counter?
Sure. I thought we were going to go through the roles. Then we'll go. Anyway, good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and good evening to all of our Toastmasters who are joining guests who are joining us from the U.S. and from internationally. My job as a counter is to count all the ahs and ums and all the filler words that you would normally use in a conversation. As you can see, I've already done my share of them, and I've lost count of the ones that I've done. But the point of this role is to help you evaluate where you use your filler words and help you avoid them later on. Thank you very much. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Arun. We have a ballot counter. I guess it's Hannah.
Good morning once again, Toastmasters and most welcome guests. I will be counting ballots at the end, towards the end of the meeting. We will be sending a Google Drive link where you can vote for your best speaker, best evaluator, and best table topics master for this morning. We'll count up the votes towards the end and announce the winners for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. We need a word master and grammarian.
I can be grammarian.
Okay. I'll take a word master.
Okay.
We need a joke master. Why me? Would like to be a joke master.
I'll attempt to come up with a joke at the end, but right now I'm also the timer.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll put you tentatively you as a joke master.
Okay.
All right. We have the role is filled. Harun, would you like to explain the role of grammarian?
Certainly, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you. As grammarian, my job is to help you identify and keep track of interesting usage of the English grammar. So any interesting phrases or creative use of words or words that actually have an impact, I'll keep track of them. And my job is also to keep track of any misuse of the grammar. So if you miss a proposition or you're using the wrong tense, I'll let you know at the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Harun. So I'm the word master for today. So the role of the word master is and make sure that everyone use the word of the day today. Word of the day today is opine, which means hold and state as one's opinion. For example, a man is a genius, he opined. I'll be posting this word in the chat and please use it during the meeting. All right. Vaiming, would you like to explain the role of the timer?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and most welcome guests. My function as timer is to run this clock in one of the cells in the grid. For the speeches, 5 to 7 minutes. At least mine says 5 to 7 minutes. I assume Georgie's is also 5 to 7 minutes. When she comes back, she can tell me otherwise. At 5 minutes, the green light will come on. At 6 minutes, the yellow, and then at 7 minutes, the red light will come on. And the speaker has 30 seconds to finish. For the evaluation, it's 2 to 3 minutes, and then for the table topics, it's 1 to 2 minutes. I do not have to opine on this because I can just report this at the end of the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Vaiming. To be missing any other role, table topics. Today table topics master is Georgie. Okay. I'll fill in for Georgie. So table topic masters come up with impromptu topic, and that will give an opportunity for everyone to talk for 2 minutes. The talk time is 2 minutes for each table topic questions. I think we filled and we have explained about all the roles. Let's give our hand rise to our first speaker, Waiming. Waiming has been one of our long members in our group, and he has been giving a very good, insightful, thoughtful speech, and I'm sure you will love your speech. So Waiming had very good state of mind. He opened any topic that he takes, and we love it. Over to Waiming.
Thank you very much. So in this last speech I gave, I talked about how one would learn from another person in terms of different types of relationships. Today, I'm going to talk specifically about how leadership is learned in a particular situation, in the family business situation. So I'm going to be, in fact, I would define leadership to be a very narrow definition. It is delivering results by commanding resources and people over a long period of time, like 5+ years. So that's what I mean by leadership here. And there are essentially 3 elements, at least in my opinion. One of them is vision and direction. You don't have to know where to go. The other one is certainly the command of the resources and the people to execute on that vision. And then the third thing, most importantly, is the drive and execution to actually deliver the result and success. So those are the 3 elements of leadership. So how do you actually, and one of the things that this professor in Stanford, a fairly famous professor, Jeffrey Pfeiffer, he wrote a number of books. He said leadership is a skill. It is a skill and can be mastered with practice and coaching. The tricky thing is, how do you practice and how do you get coaching on it? Because one of the key things with leadership that I define is this idea of command of resources and people. And resources is money. People is power. Money and power are really precious, and most people have a hard time getting it. And so how do you actually be able to use that to then exercise your leadership? So there are a number of situations that would enable you to that. In Silicon Valley, people do that by just starting themselves. They start a company, and then, so examples are like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and Larry Ellison. You can go down the long list of people who have started companies who become very powerful and great leaders in this world. There, as another way, you can climb up the corporate ladder, or the political ladder, or organizational ladder, or military ladder. So you just start from the beginning and just go through the years and just become increasingly more of a leadership position, get into a leadership position. So that's only another way to get there. A third way is you are a prince. You are a princess, and you're part of that kingdom or empire, and then you just somehow get trained by the king to become the next leader. Now, one of the most interesting things, similar to this kingdom idea, is family businesses. Family businesses is where a lot of leaders get trained. And so I'm going to talk about that. When you look at the world, over 70% of the world GDP is actually owned by family businesses. And in fact, in the US, that's 57%, and 63% of the workforce is actually run by family businesses. Now, there are lots of family businesses. You can go down the list. Walmart, Roche, Novartis, those are all family businesses. Whether they're public or not, they're still family businesses. But most of them are not run by members of the family. So ownership is not the same as leadership. At the same time, there are certain companies, there are rare of them, but some of them are run by family members. One of them is Comcast. Comcast is an enormous company. It started in 1963. So I'm going to tell the story of Comcast and the Roberts family and how leadership was inherited, at least from the outside. So Ralph Robert started Comcast by buying some small company in Mississippi to provide cable television. In the 1960s, people get TV over the air. They just go put an antenna on, you get TV. However, to get cable is a rare thing. But there was sort of small businesses that people have in rural areas, especially because you don't have Wi-Fi, enough of a radio to actually catch TV. So he started a business there. He came from a rich family, but his father died, and then the family lost all the money. So he wanted to be an entrepreneur, so he started this business. It was a small business, but when he had his son, Brian, he took him everywhere. Every time he gets a loan, he takes Brian to the bank. And when Brian was old enough in high school, he taught him how to trade stock. So when Brian had time outside of school, he would look at the Wall Street Journal, figure out what stock to buy and what his investment is. So he became very competitive in terms of being able to trying to win. So over time, Brian got a degree from University of Pennsylvania in finance. And then he started working for his father, Comcast. The first job he had was to sell the cable TV service by knocking on people's doors. And over time, he moved on to installing cable by climbing up the poles and then running the cables. And then over time, he got to get on higher level into finance and everything, and then represented the company in situations dealing with like the Turner situation, Turner Broadcasting and other. And he learned how that by growing the company, and that's how he developed his vision, by acquiring bigger and bigger company. And Comcast over time has acquired, since he became president at 31 years old of the company, has acquired companies like QVC and AT&T Broadband, as well as NBC. So Comcast has gotten to be, when he first became president, after years of training by his father, it was around $657 million in revenue. By the time he finished, 30 years later, it's over $109 billion, 160 times bigger in terms of revenue compared to when it started. And he got all that training on the vision on how to actually drive the company, as well as delivering results, and also commanded the people. He understands the organization, where the resources are, how to use them, by training by his father. So the point is, family businesses is a fertile ground to train to get leadership training. Now, I didn't come from a rich family, so I don't get that, and I don't know whether you do. And frankly, we're too old, yeah? So now you have to look at next generation, if you ever have your child, you have to look at that, how do you train that person to be the next leader? And if you're not ready for that, you can train yourself to be the leader, and then you can train that person. So the point is, family matters. Mr. Toastmasters.
Thank you, Wei Ming. That was the most inspiring story, and it's a very good one to kickstart our Wednesday. Please feel free to give your feedback to Wei Ming in the chat. Please use the private option to send your feedback to the Wei Ming. Let's take a minute for the feedback. All right. Let's move on to Georgie. Our next speaker is Georgie, and the topic is, okay, maybe I'll let Georgie to give the title of the topic. Okay, yeah, so your financial life. Georgie has been one of our longest member of the club, and she has been giving us topics, speech topics related to the financial stuff, and it's been very useful for everyone, and we are learning new stuff on every speech that we get from Georgie. Georgie, please take it over. Georgie, you are on mute. I think you are still in mute.
Sorry, for some reason there, I lost the gallery all of a sudden.
No,
All right.
we can hear you.
Great. Okay. So let me stop. Is that okay? Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to continue talking about finances that affect our lives, and this time we're going to talk about something a little out of the current use for a lot of people, and that's charitable foundations, or at least you might think they're out of your current worldview. So let's start talking first about how charity is run in the United States. When people think of charity, they tend to think of the big mega donors. And one of the earliest mega donors that most people think about is Andrew Carnegie. He founded US Steel, and his big contribution to society was he built over 3,000 public libraries starting in 1883. He was so magnanimous in his charity that even though he was one of the wealthiest people on the planet, by the time of his death in 1919, he had given away almost 90% of his vast fortune. So that's kind of the way things work in the United States. There's a lot of give and take between the US government and charity. The concept you can imagine is that the United States sort of began out of a raw wilderness. So everyone had to volunteer and work together if they wanted to build a town there. As a result, everything in the United States, whether it was schools, prisons, even charity balls, everything, all of life kind of came from the volunteers and the energy that people had in order to form all of these clubs and organizations to improve their services to their community. The US government has been part of that, and they've been very interested in encouraging that sort of behavior from the citizens. And you can see it even from the earliest tax bills that have been passed. The Tariff Act of 1894 included tax exemption for certain charitable organizations. So like I said, we've been looking into this sort of thing for the United States for a while. So unfortunately, a lot of rich people who were supposedly giving back to charity in the olden days weren't quite as magnanimous as Mr. Carnegie, and as a result, the federal government had to pass some additional tax reform legislation, some of the biggest coming in 1969. So if you want to have a tax-exempt organization, a charitable foundation, you've got to follow certain rules. One of the biggest ones is that you need to have a 5% minimum distribution of the money that is held by the charity. The reason was that a lot of rich people before this formed charities, but they held on to all of the money. These charities were actually a way for them to keep their money and keep it in such a way that they got to pay almost no taxes on it. Hence the idea of the 5% minimum distribution. There's also now legislation against self-dealing. I can't have a charity that somehow grants money tax-free to my business, for example. That's considered a no-no. That's considered self-dealing. Also, I can't have a charity in which I get paid $10 million and I give away $5,000 in charity. It's once again, it's not the right way to do charity. Now, the other thing that they do is the reason that people do like to have charity is that while they might give away 5% of the money, they still have 95% of the money sitting there. So what do you do with it? You invest it. You put it into the stock market, you put it into companies, whatever you do with it. Back in '69, they had a 4% tax on any sort of income that came in from this money. They reduced that to 2% in 1978. Likewise, if you were to, with your charitable foundation, use 97% of that money in some sort of unrelated business income, like for example, maybe you got an IPO in Twitter, for example, or Uber, that's not part of your core charity. That's considered unrelated business incomes, and you have to pay money on that. Likewise, you can't hold more than 20% of a business. You also are not allowed to influence legislation or elections. Also, the IRS insists that you tell them where the money is going when money is granted as part of your charity. So that way they can keep track of kind of what's going on with all this. So when the legislation was first passed, people opined that that might drive charitable giving down. In actuality, charitable contributions and giving has increased quite a bit from people from wide ranges, from people on the left, people on the right, religious organizations, secular, everything. And there are charities all over the place. The chart that you see on the screen is actually from the IRS itself. The black bar indicates the number of charitable organizations that are required to file paperwork with the IRS. The gray bar below it are the charities that are not required. These sort of charities would be things in the US like religious organizations, churches, mosques, synagogues, things like that. So they don't actually have to send anything to the IRS. Some of them do just because they want to. We have seen as a result the charitable expenditures, both the money given away by the charities and the money spent by the charity itself to maintain the charity, has increased much more than the GDP of the United States. We also see that some of the biggest public charities are actually going to some of the wealthiest organizations, as you can see from the other chart. You see that Harvard, Stanford, Yale, those assets they have in their charities, that's billions of dollars, and that was 2004. So these organizations are doing quite well. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Gates Foundation today, and I will talk a little bit more about the Gates Foundation in my future speech. The reason why, it is the largest private foundation in the world. Currently, it's running about $50 billion in assets. The other reason is it's one of the few that actually publicly publishes their tax returns, donor list, grant recipients, fund investments online so that everybody can see what's going on. Now, once again, you may ask, why exactly are we talking about foundations? I don't have $50 billion sitting around. I don't know about you. The reason we're doing that is, as I said, they may give money away, but they also invest most of that money. And as you can see from the chart, this is a list of the stocks that this particular foundation has invested in. So you get Berkshire Hathaway, which isn't unusual since one of the organizers for the foundation is Warren Buffett. But you also see things like Caterpillar, Crown Castle. Like I said, these organizations do move the market and they do affect your life. So as I said, private foundations move markets and they also can change the world. Going back to what's something that Alexander Tocqueville said when he visited the United States in 1831, Americans all can come together, and they often do with lots of energy to pursue their aims as a group. So how will you give back even though you don't have $50 billion? Thank you.
Thank you, Georgie. Let's give a feedback in the private chat to Georgie. All right. Today's general evaluator is Harun. Harun, please, the floor is on yours. Harun, you are on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow guests. Appreciate this. Thank you, Gautam and Wei Ming. Evaluations are one of the most important part of our typical Toastmaster meeting. It helps, gives feedback to the speakers about the topics, about their style, and really builds this feedback loop where a speaker will tell you or speak to the audience, and the audience will give them feedback. It actually provides an avenue for improvement and pointers and weaknesses where the speaker can improve their speaking skills. So for our first evaluator is going to be Tao, who will be evaluating Wei Ming. Tao is a longtime member of our club. He is a prolific reader and speaker, and has spoken about a number of topics. And it's always good to listen to his insights. Tao?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. So today I'll be evaluating Wei Ming's speech. As introduction alluded to, Wei Ming is a very experienced speaker, and you can clearly see in his delivery of the subject. The subject matter is a little bit abstract and is not very easy to understand, and yet Wei Ming delivered with excellent pace that we can all easily follow along. And I also like the fact that he used very conversational language and not very formal language that we typically see in writings. His hand gesture is also very effective, and you can really see like his point of emphasis as he uses his hand to communicate. And in today's speech, he gave a very structured outline of leadership in the family business. He started by introducing what family business is, a concept that many of us are not very familiar with. And then he explained his concept by telling a story, which I also think is one of the more effective way of explaining a concept. It's not just by saying it, but telling it with a story. There's only two things I think that I might consider as potential improvements. The first one has to do with, it might help in the beginning of the speech to frame the speech in such a way that it gains audience interest. Basically tell the audience what's in it for them. Why should they care about the speech, and what are they going to learn from it? This way, in case of this subject is a little bit far away from day-to-day life, at least they know, what to expect and not get bored out of it. The second suggestion I have is also along similar lines, perhaps getting to the main point of the speech earlier. Again, because the subject requires a lot of setup, so I think it was maybe like 4 minutes or 5 minutes in before you get into a story. So again, like I think probably you might want to think about how to structure the speech so that you get to the main topic a little earlier. But overall, again, the takeaway points is very interesting, and I think we all feel inspired by the story that you told about managing a family business, even though it's something that we're not going to be doing for a while. But the concept of thinking about your future, thinking about your children, I think that's something that we can all take away with. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Tao. Our next evaluator is our president, Hannah. Hannah will be evaluating Georgie. Hannah is also a great speaker and has given a lot of speeches on personal improvement, small businesses, and Hannah's insights on business and finance are always great. So it'll be great to listen to what she has to say. Hannah?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, and good morning once again, Toastmasters and most welcome guests. Georgie, I was expecting a Naylor speech on finances or financial background, but was very pleasantly pleased that you talked about charitable foundations. I did do some work with the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, which asset-wise is up there in the billions. I would say they still rank pretty high in terms of how big of a charity they are. And I did hear somebody mention Juniper Networks, which is also a giver here in Silicon Valley. So very tied to this local area here. You did walk through a lot of things where, and a lot of great, like, I guess, a lot of great like quotes, and you did reference Andrew Carnegie. I was surprised you didn't mention the Rockefeller family as much, but that was a very good insight that you provided in terms of charitable giving. I didn't feel lost on your speech at all. I felt like it came natural to you. In terms of your vocal variety, it was always high. You had hand gestures, you provided clarity during your speech, and in articulating your topic, it was very clear. Your slides were clean. Some of the slides didn't match each other, but in terms of overall the topic, talking about the different foundations, going over taxes, which is a huge thing. That's one of the main reasons people give. And in terms of towards the end, there was a lot of resources that you did cover for people to get the interest of the topic. And what was lost on me overall was kind of just the why. And that's sometimes what I think about. People don't know what you care about until they know why. So why you chose this topic, why it interests you. And then in the end, that you did pose a question to the group where you kind of did that call to action of like, what are you going to give, or what kind of impact are you going to have? Which was actually, which did come off pretty clear, but could have been a little bit stronger and more supported towards the end. So the what's in it for me is kind of like what's in it for the group, right? And so like what kind of impact can you make? There is even possibilities where you can start a donor fund. So in my experience, I worked with donor engagement, and I worked with corporate giving and a lot of the corporations here in Silicon Valley for a brief time, because my friend had got me into it. She had worked for the public foundation. So it was a very eye-opening experience. And I feel like you covered a lot of the parts of it in your speech. So within your speech, it was easy to follow. In terms of challenging for talking from experience, I know you challenge yourself to talk about a topic that you normally wouldn't because you're very technical. So I've also found that very enlightening. So overall, I would say you challenge yourself pretty well to cover a topic I would feel that you wouldn't normally cover because it's not technical or technology based. Just the level of interest and why you chose this topic, I just want to see a little more clear. So overall, Georgie, great speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Hannah. At this point, I'd like to turn control over back to our Toastmaster. Or is it
Thank
our
you,
Table
Howard.
Topics Master?
Should be a Toastmaster. I'll handle. Okay, I'm handing it over to our Table Topics Master for today. Our Table Topics Master is Georgie. Georgie, please take it.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Today, our theme for the meeting was equilibrium, and I thought I would continue along that theme with some of our table topics questions. The concept in table topics is that you are simulating what it would be like to be trapped as an entrepreneur in an elevator with one of your VCs, and someone asks you an off-the-wall question, and you have to try to answer it in a way that makes you sound intelligent and not stumbling over your words. So imagine that we're simulating that situation. So today, let me start by asking a question associated with equilibrium. The question is, has your life ever been out of balance? And if so, how could you tell that it was out of balance? Does anyone want to take this question? Oh, and just to remind everyone, we have a word of the day of opine. So give it some thought. You know, you might want to opine about some topics. Anyone would like to take this question? When your life was out of balance and how you could tell. Otherwise, I will select a volunteer. After a speech on charity, and this is all I get. Okay, so let's start with Tao, whose life is currently not in balance since he is trapped in quarantine.
Thank you, Georgie. a very interesting topic because my first instinct when you asked the question was, when was my life ever in balance? And I think the answer might just be never, at least as far as I can remember. I'm actually of the personality that tend to singularly focus on one thing. So there have been years where I singularly focus on work. And then you have the other extreme where this year I was singularly focused on something other than work. So I have to admit that this notion of balance is kind of a foreign concept for me. Although I will say this though, I do think the notion of balance is also subjective. Balance should not imply that it's a 50-50 split. I mean, that might be balance for some people, but that's not necessarily the case for everybody. I think finding the right balance and right equilibrium is very much of a subjective notion. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And if it comes up to be 90-10, and I think that's potentially, that's probably that's probably a good balance to strike if that's what you really want. However, I think the key is you want this to be a deliberate choice. You don't want to be forced into a situation where you're making a choice, but you don't really want to do that. And that's when you know you're out of balance, is a situation where, for instance, you want to be spending more time with family, but you can't. So that's a situation where you know that you're going to be, you're going to need to be adjusting the balance. The other way to tell is if the people around you start to act differently. If your friends start to, getting out of touch with you, or your significant others start to have, start applying for different solutions or different weekend plans, you probably need to do something different. Back to you, Ms. Table Topic Master.
Thank you very much. All right. Moving on, we're going to look at that same question, so the question is, has your life ever been out of balance? And if so, what did you do about it? Do I have any volunteers for describing what they did with an out of balance life? So nobody. I will then select our Toastmaster, Gautam.
Okay. Could you please repeat the question again?
The question is, has your life ever been out of balance? And if so, what did you do about it?
Thank you, Georgie. Yeah, I used to notice, am I in the right state of mind or am I in the balanced state? If I feel like I'm not in the balanced state, then I'll take a break. I always remember one thing. It's if I cannot fly, I should walk. If I cannot walk, I should take a baby steps. If I cannot take a baby steps, I should take a break. Then I'll try to again fly again. Just keep on trying until I reach what I want. Being in a very balanced state of mind, and both physically and mentally, it's essential for our need. How to check the kind of a checkpoint, are we in a balanced state or not? That's most challengeable one that I think compared to being in a balanced state. Because if we know that we are out of balance, then it's very easy to fix it. How do we know if it is out of balance? That's a different question. So I always look for cues. Could be in a productive, if it is a work-related work. Could be like how I react to my environment and the people surrounded me. Sometimes we do not notice it. I do notice if I get a feedback or a signal from my opposite side. Oh, okay, it didn't work what I was intended to do. Okay, then that's a signal to me. Okay, what should I do to make it balanced? So once I noticed it, take a break and I'll follow If it was miscommunicated, try to fix it. If it was interpreted in a different way, I'll fix it. So noticing the balanced state is really important compared to trying to fix it or to table topic master charging.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. The next question is, if you read up on books that suggest how to maintain equilibrium or balance in your life, one of the things that a lot of books suggest is that you just say no when people ask you to do more and more. So my question is, can you give us an example of when your life was out of balance and you realized it and you just said no? Hannah.
Thank you, Mrs. Table Topics Master. I will opine, or I have opined that there's no such thing as balance. I believe, I'm a firm believer in that. I am more inclined to believe in seasons, that life has seasons. There's times in your life where you're going to spend a lot of time on work. There's times in your life you're going to spend more time with your family. There's times in your life where you're going to spend more time doing something that you didn't anticipate that you would be involved in. I, being a person of a yes mentality, tend to say yes to way more things than I should, and way more obligations and opportunities than I should. So only because I come from a place of learning and education, I'm always curious about things. Even in saying yes to this charity opportunity, I never thought I would work briefly with the foundation. I did for about a year, and it was very enlightening, but I wouldn't think I would ever say yes. A good friend and mentor of mine said, I need your help in corporate giving, and the opportunity was there. So did I continue that career path? No, but it did teach me a lot. I have also said yes to different Toastmaster clubs, and then most recently I have also said no to different Toastmaster clubs that have been like, hey, we want you to join, and I've said no. So learning to say no is something very new and foreign to me, and most of the time I do say yes, even in my networking groups and meetups and starting new meetup groups, even faith-based organizations that are like, we want you to be involved and we want you to be a leader. I am more inclined to say yes. So I would agree that saying no is one of those things is very foreign to me. I have recently started to do it because I'm just running out of time that I have available to commit to different kind of things. So I would say, yeah, definitely practice saying no. But in a way, also keep that yes mentality. You never know who you're going to meet, what you're going to learn, and who you're going to get connected to. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. All right, so next question. When you are trying to maintain your sanity among all the different things you're trying to do you have any sort of a daily, weekly, monthly practice that helps you to maintain balance? And if so, what do you do? So, Harun, do you do?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Fellow guests, most welcome guests, and fellow Toastmasters. What daily routines, monthly routines, and weekly routines do I maintain to maintain equilibrium or balance in my life? That's a very interesting question, and it has evolved. It's a topic that I'm very interested in for personal growth. I came originally to personal organization and learning from a very chaotic personal life. Not in the sense that I was disorganized or didn't have it together, but my day consisted really of completely unstructured activities that were completely random. Now, apart from the big categories like work and eating and doing general day-to-day stuff, I had no schedule or structure in my day. But slowly I've evolved the system, I realize that, and I've decided to slot up my time in terms of days, weeks, and months. So every day what I do is that I actually look at my calendar and I look at my to-do list and allocate time to do them and plan them out. I've been using a technique called the 168 hours technique, where I basically divide up my day into 30-hour slots and I track how I'm spending that time. And I take that at the end of every week, I actually look at how I spent those 168 hours and then plan my week accordingly. And every month, I actually set sort of some themes that I want to accomplish in that month. Is that effective? I don't know. Over the long term, I've decided not to focus on long-term goals as much, but to sort of focus on these hours, days, and weeks, and accomplishing those little tasks that I think will get me to where I want to be in, say, a year or 2 years. Obviously, a lot of plans didn't work out at the beginning of this year, but I hope to make a fresh start at the beginning of next year as things return to normal, or as normal as close to normal as they can get. Thank you, Madam Tabletop Master.
Thank you. All right. For our next question, the question is, have you figured out what is your balanced state? And in figuring it out, did you work at it, or did you just know? Did it just kind of come and did it evolve organically? So, Deepak, would you like to take the question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Table. I'm sorry. Okay, so thanks a lot for this question, ma'am. Certainly, this is a really interesting topic, and I would like to touch upon it. So yes, as I'm working as a consultant, and suddenly my life it has been out of balance since I joined as a consultant. It's always a customer who drive us, and they control us basically. So I was trying to improve it, and I found this The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle, and the book called Deep Work. So these are the keys for me, I believe, and this worked very well for me. When I start focusing on the important part and started automating the unimportant stuff, basically I started saving some time from the work and started kind of utilizing that time for other things and to start balancing it. Also, the concept from the book, The Power of Now, is to focus on now and kill all the worries about the past and the future, because it really doesn't exist. What exists is now. And this is the most powerful concept I think I found in that book, and which is impacting my life positively. So, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Now we have one person who has another question. How are we doing on time, Mr. Toastmaster?
I think we have time for one question.
One more question. Great. All right. We have one more question for Wan Ming, our final volunteer. All right. So with respect to balance and equilibrium, some people go so extreme that they find the only way that they are going to be able to maintain any sort of balance in this extreme form is to completely disconnect from the internet. Have you disconnected from the internet before, or do you think that is too extreme for somebody living in Silicon Valley?
Ms. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, most welcome guest. Disconnect from the internet. Well, certainly, if I'm not sure how that works, because I cannot disconnect from the internet. It is the source of everything. All my speeches come from there. I'm sorry. Without the internet, I cannot give a speech. I have no ideas what things are. So, at the same time, if one wants to become a monk or a hermit or someone who goes off, there's a story about this guy who went off to Africa or Alaska or wherever in the wilderness, and then eventually he dies. If you want to do that, that's up to you. However, I don't recommend it. I think you want access to, whether it's the internet, information, everything, because that is life. That is the most important thing, the most precious, is to be able to get information, work with people, learn from people, build the world up. Otherwise, you're just another worm. I'm sorry. Words of the worm, a virus or something else. And it's okay if you want to choose to do that, but I don't recommend it. Ms. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you very much, Hua Ming. And with that, that's the end of our table topics section. I do want to remind everyone that we're gonna have a vote later and everybody gets to be a candidate for the best table topics person. Meanwhile, I will now be transitioning over to our general evaluator, Harun.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I will be doing the general evaluation for the meeting. And at first order, I'd like to call on our roles. So our first role will be our odd counter, who will be reporting on the number of odds and ums that we have done. Now, since the odd counter, myself, and was also the grammarian, I will be using this opportunity to sort of combine these roles and tell you as how many odds and ums and the uses of grammar that I noticed that I really liked, or in my interpretation of the language did not approve of. And I will report that as the people who have actually spoken. So our first speaker was Wai Ming. Wai Ming, I counted 5 O's during your speech. And here are the things that the noted uses of grammars that I found. Was one of the things that I really liked is about your use of climbing the ladder, and then you combine that with different kinds of ladders that you may encounter in different professions: the corporate ladder, the political ladder, and the family business ladder. And I thought that was a very interesting way of actually saying that, you know, how many that there are many ways to climb to go up. Our next speaker was Georgie. Georgie, in terms of odds and ums, you were very clear and concise, and I didn't notice any kind of odds and ums. Yeah, I only counted 2. The only thing that I saw over there was I didn't notice any grammatical mistakes. And the one thing that I did notice was that, oh, yes. You mentioned Alexander de Tocqueville, but in your slides you had mentioned Alexis. So I wasn't sure which was the right name to use over there. Our next speaker was Tao, who was evaluating. And I really liked your use of the word grammar of conversational. I thought that was really interesting about your conversational style. I only noted 5 ahs and ums. One thing that I also noticed in my end, and I took a note of that, was that when I introduced you, I called you a prolific reader. I wanted to say voracious reader, but I was sort of mixing up the reader and writer, the adjectives for writing. Hannah, then our next evaluator was Hannah. I counted 7 ahs and ums. Our table topics was in our table topics, I noticed that, Georgie, you mentioned not stumbling on your words. That's a very interesting phrase to use in a conversation. And then the next one was Tao, who said that all your choices have to be deliberate. And I thought that really made your table topics answer very impactful. Gautam, I noticed 2 ahs and ums during your answer. And Hannah, you used a phrase called life has seasons. I thought that was really well done. And for myself, I counted 5 ahs when I gave my table topics answer. And that's my report. I'd now like to call upon the timer to give us a timing report.
As a general evaluator in terms of timing for the speeches, I spoke for 7 minutes and 50 seconds, Georgie 7:45. In the evaluation, Tao spoke for 2:50, Hannah 2:50. Table topics, Tao 2:12, Gautam 2:16, Hannah 1:55, Haroon 2:19, Deepak 1:32, and myself 1:31. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Timer. Our next duty master is Gautam, and Gautam will be our word master. In your opinion, can you opine on what was the usage of the word?
Sure. So I noticed Wyoming, Georgie, Haroon use the word, and if I missed any of you, like, please apologize. Thank you.
Our next duty master is the joke master. Wyoming, do you
So,
have a
Mr.
joke for us?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, just a very short joke. A man just finished his LASIK eye surgery, and the surgeon led him into the office to discuss about the surgery. So the doctor said, "Would you like the good news or the bad news first?" The man excitedly replies, "I will take the good news first." The surgeon says, "Well, you're going to get a new dog." That's it. You didn't get it. LASIK surgery. He finished the surgery, the good news or bad news. And then the surgeon said, I'll give you the good news. You're going to get a new dog.
Oh.
Okay.
Right.
So please submit your votes, and then I'd like to turn it over back to our president, Hannah. Oh, I have to do the general evaluation. I apologize. As a meeting, hey, this meeting went really well. The meeting, we started up a little bit late, but we had a good turnout, and we had a last-minute cancellation. So our backup speaker actually stepped up. I'd urge all of us, and myself including, to always be available for speaking. The Zoom format actually gives a lot of opportunities to speak and practice and hone an art, and I think that Zoom, that given the pandemic and work from home, this state of work will actually help us in a lot of areas, not just in our public speaking. Overall, I think the meeting and the questions were really interesting, and we are almost on time to wrap up the meeting as well. Thank you. I'd like to now turn over control to our president, Hannah.
All right. Oh, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. And we are gonna fill roles for next week, but we can also announce the winners, where everybody did amazing this morning. So thank you guys for everybody's participation, especially in table topics. Everybody got a chance, so that's awesome. It's always a great meeting. In terms of roles for next week, do we have any speakers that want to sign up?
Sign up.
Haroon?
Yeah.
Haroon Tao. So I'll put you guys down. We do also have a guest speaker that will be coming in next week. So, and then I think Wyoming signed up for secondary. So I think, yeah, Haroon Tao and then the guest speaker. So let me put that down. Evaluator, does anybody want to be evaluator for next week? Georgie, awesome.
You said evaluator, right?
Yeah. And then table topics, the guest speaker may take like up to 10 minutes, but we can alternatively just put a table topics master in case. Does anybody want to be a tentative table topics master?
I can be tentative.
Okay. Awesome. Oh, Toastmaster for next week, the most important rule. Who wants to, why me? Okay, excellent. Awesome. Okay, that'll get us going for next week. And then before we announce winners, Deepak, we'll have you unmute. And then if you have any closing comments for what you thought of the meeting or what you learned today, anything you want to share out, just to get guest feedback. So any comments you want to, if you want to unmute and throw it in there.
Well, really, yeah, certainly. So first of all, thanks a lot. Really, it's though I wasn't able to, be on topic, and I forget a lot of things when I came, and started answering the question. But overall, the meeting and this session was really awesome, and I think I really appreciate your support, all those master support for onboarding a person like me in this and providing this platform and opportunity to any newcomer who would like to take public speaking, who would like to learn public speaking. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Awesome, Deepak. Thank you. All right, excellent. All right, and let's announce some winners. It's very competitive, especially for table topics this morning. So please give a drum roll, please, for best table topics master. Once again, a fierce competition. We have Deepak. We did have a couple people we also want to recognize, Haroon as well. So Haroon, also a great job on table topics. So fierce competition for this morning. And for best evaluator, we had a blow out of the water. Blow out of the water, almost. I was competitive too. I threw in that competition, but it was Tao. So I gave it Tao a run for his money, but Tao was the best one. So congratulations, Tao. Awesome. Best speaker. Oh, let me go and refresh best speaker. Please give a drum roll, please. Please give a drum roll to Wai-Ming. Wai-Ming, best speaker for this morning. Congratulations. All right, great job, everyone. And if we want to take a photo, I think we have a few minutes left here. Unless anybody has announcements, anything they want to share out. All right. I will actually, I guess I'll throw an announcement out there. John Godoy is going to be our guest speaker for next week. He's going to be about 7 to 10 minutes on ESL, so English as a second language, and ESL speakers. So it's going to be he's going to have some nice things to share. And we'll set up an announcement for that as well. All right. Haroon, I think you're the video master, but I can also take a screenshot. Hold on. All right.
Are you going to take a screenshot?
Yeah, everybody look live. Okay, awesome. Done.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now.